take my soul tonight. I'm humbled at your feet. I surrender my life to your hands, to your son who died for me.
Welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Poor Angie's been having technical difficulties. No internet, so she's on her phone. So I'm going to do it a little different today. When she's talking, I'm going to just put her on the screen, so she'll be a little larger than she is now.
And Josie, what I want to tell you, if I go in and out, you'll know it's because I'm losing signal.
Yeah.
But it is crazy. I don't know what's going on in this town with our internet. It's crazy.
She even said that I think the bank couldn't even get on. So, I mean, the whole town must be suffering with the lack of internet. So bear with us today. We have a great subject. And I even typed out an intro. That our subject, the illusion of control in relationships and personal growth. It should be an interesting discussion, and I pray that poor Angie can stay in here.
I hope so.
If something happens and we have to come on later tonight or tomorrow, we will do that. So anyway, let's see who's in here. Pamela, Claudette, Mr. Doggy, Dee, and Claudette, and okay. Now,
all right, I can't see the chat, so you're going to have to let me know.
Okay. That was my next question.
I'm scared. It says there's a little button up here that says comments and chat, but I'm afraid to touch anything because I don't want it to mess up.
I know. Anyway, we'll get through this, but I'm going to just bring up and let Angie talk before I yak. There you are.
Hey, everyone. Our whole town is without internet. It's always something going on in this little small town. But anyway, Josie sent me this. She's real quick about when she's going to do her, it's her time to do her subject on what we're going to talk about. And she sent me this title, and I was just like, yes, sounds like an awesome title to a good conversation. So when I went to research it, I found out so much. And the thing about it is, when Josie and I do these monthly shows, I learned so much through just researching what we were going to talk about. But I'm going to let Josie do her introduction and start off with the topic, and then we'll go from there. I have a few notes, Josie, but I'll let you go ahead and do yours.
Yeah, I'll do the introduction, and then I'm going to put you back on, and then you can, do your thing too.
Okay.
Let's see. Let me put, okay, I'm big enough. They don't need to see me bigger. Okay, I'm going to be reading this because I didn't want to miss a point. So, you know how I get to talking and I get off on a different track. Okay, it says, hi, everyone. Welcome in. Today, I want to talk about something that I think many of us experience. either trying to change someone we care about or feeling like someone tried to change us. Here's the truth. When you try to change someone, you might be doing it from a place of love or concern. But what often happens is you actually damage the relationship. Why? Because it sends the message, whether you mean to or not, that who they aren't isn't enough. And nobody wants to feel like they're not enough. Think about it. People want to accept, understand, and appreciate for who they really are, not for who we wish they would be. Trying to fix, reshape, or control another person can slowly break down the trust, the closeness in the relationship. They might start to hide their real self or push you away altogether. So tonight I want to hear from all of you. Have you ever caught yourself trying to change someone, or maybe someone trying to change you? How did it make you feel? Did it help or hurt the relationship? Let's talk about the power of acceptance and why loving someone as they might be the most healing thing you can do. So I'm going to put Angie on and let her talk.
I had in my notes that about control, it says the illusion of control is a psychological concept where people overestimate their ability to control events, especially those that are actually influenced or external forces or chances in relationships and personal growth. If you ever tried to control a situation or try to control something that's about to happen, honestly, we cannot control anything but who we are. We can't control anybody else. It may seem like we're controlling them, but honestly, people are going to do what they want to do. They may be doing what you ask them to do because they want to, but you're really not controlling them. I've had this experience in my life because I had a person that thought they were actually controlling me, but what I was doing out of my heart and I wanted to do it. Well, then when I figured out that they were trying to control me, I was like, no, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not going to go with what they're wanting to do. I'm going to do what I want to do. Well, they just flipped. They didn't understand why I wasn't in compliance to going along with what they wanted to do. And in reality, in their mind, they thought that they were controlling me, and they really were not. So we have to be careful about trying to influence somebody and not letting them be who they truly are. And it's like Josie said, and I've always said, you got to meet people where they are, and you got to accept them and love them for who they are so they can come up and be different, or you could be different. Especially in a relationship, people change and you grow together or you grow apart.
Yeah.
That's what I've come to realize.
I totally agree. I think it's kind of like there's that inner in us that it just comes out. We think we kind of compare ourselves and we think, okay, we've changed and we can do it. If we can do it, they can do it. But each person is different,
Yeah, because you don't know what level of growth where they are. And it's like a marriage. I think you can't marry someone and expect the person I'm gonna marry him and he's gonna change after we get married. No, he's not. He's not going to. He's going to be the same person he was when you were dating him. And, he did the things that, for instance, let me give you this example. Okay, James has always hunted. I mean, from October 1 to January 31st, he hunts. Well, I was thinking after we got married, he won't hunt as much as he hunts. He won't do that after we get married. No, ma'am. He did. He did the same thing. And it caused kind of a rift after we had children because I wanted him to be home more during the winter with the family, and he wanted to be hunting all the time. So I thought in my little innocent mind, oh, he'll change after we get married. He won't hunt as much. No, that does not happen. So don't think in your mind that you're going to be able to change somebody from what they grew up and it's embedded in them to be that way, that they're just going to automatically change overnight, because they're not.
And by the way, Angie cannot read the chat, so I will read some things to her. Randy says, when was newly married, that hubby thought I should show after. I think she meant shower after I had my nice hot soaking bubble bath to wash the scum. I told him where to go. And Claudette says, I've heard many women talk about how they train their husbands by teaching him how to cook and clean. That has always bothered me. That's trying to control and change him. You're absolutely correct. I'll use myself for an example. When I married my husband, the one I was married to for 17 and a half years, he was a smoker when I married him. And my mother just had this fit. Well, you should tell him he shouldn't smoke. And being a nurse, I knew it wasn't good for him. But I reminded myself, he smoked when I got married, when I married him. I accepted that. I never, ever tried to change him. I knew it wasn't good for him, and he knew how I felt, but I never uttered those words. He quit smoking 10 years before he was diagnosed with cancer, but he quit on his own. I never once said, honey, you should stop smoking. It's not good for you.
Well, see, the longer James and I have stayed married, he's not so mad at him now. He doesn't hunt like that. You know, he doesn't hunt. And see, when he married me, he knew I could not cook. I could not even boil water. I mean, I did not know how to cook anything. Okay. But being married and after we had children, I learned slowly to cook the way they cook in Louisiana, which was good because I didn't have to tell him, well, this is the way I grew up cooking, and I'm not going to learn how to cook the way your grandmother did or your mother did. I didn't have to tell him that because he taught me the ways of how his parents cooked, which made it easier that I didn't have to switch from a way that my parents cooked to the way his parents cooked, you know. But I chose to learn how to cook, just like he chose not to hunt as much.
But it's a compromise.
I would say,
compromise.
Yeah, the more I would get aggravated about him hunting so much, the more he was determined he was going to do it. You know? So I just left it alone. I was like, he'll make up his mind one day.
When you get into a marriage or any relationship, if you can't accept that person the way they are, then you shouldn't be in that relationship. Because even if you manage to change them, eventually they're going to walk away from you.
Well, in the notes that I took, it says, you can't control how someone feels. You can't control that. You can't force mutual growth. You can't expect someone to grow as you are growing. You know, you are not, you can't manage every outcome, and you can't make that person do what you want them to do because they're going to resent it. Resentment sets in.
And that's what usually makes them eventually over the years walk away from you, because they have built up this resentment. I've got here too, wanting to help people is nice until you forcefully try to change someone. No matter how much you want to improve the other person, it's not up to you to decide what changes they need.
And
And
I feel like over being married, I can use, I'm using my marriage because that's the longest relationship I've ever had. But I can see now that when you allow someone to learn it themselves, they have a more confidence about them than if you're trying to tell them what they should do. It makes them feel like a child, because I know people that's trying to tell me things and trying to control me. It would make me feel like, well, maybe I don't know what I'm doing, or, make me feel less than, you know,
yeah,
and you never want anybody to feel that way. And they express themselves through anger when that happens. They
yep,
get mad about you trying to tell them what to do.
yep.
And I wouldn't want anybody to tell me what to do as an adult. I mean, you get to be an adult, you want to grow and learn on your own. You don't want somebody dictating over you like you did when you were a child.
We learn by our mistakes, I'm afraid.
Oh,
And
failure will make you learn quick.
yeah, yeah,
And pain, and pain.
yeah. And Randy says, back in the day, we were never taught how to screen a marriage partner. If there is a habit you cannot live with, do not marry the person. And that's right. Unless you're willing to accept them for who they are, you should not marry. But, women, we're guilty of this more than men. We're emotional and we think we can control the world. And we can't. But
Well,
it's just,
yeah, I totally agree.
I have here, if you generally want to help someone, let them come to you with their concerns. And even then, you must be very careful when phrasing your suggestions. It's much better if you listen and guide them towards finding their answer. When someone wants to make positive changes, they should do it for themselves, not for you or anyone else.
Um, I had a friend that would constantly tell me, if you start acting like your mother, we can't be friends. And I thought at first she was joking. It was like, I would go, girl, I'm never going to act like that. What are you talking about? So then one day I did something that she thought reflected the way my mother would have acted. And she looks at me and she says, just as serious as she could, she said, I've always told you, if you start acting like your mother, we can't be friends. Well, then I knew she was serious. And I looked at her and I said, well, obviously we were never friends, because if that's the way you feel and you can't accept me, I mean, my mother is a part of me. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
She had me. I have DNA that comes from her. Some things I may do like she does. But if that's a deal breaker for you, for us to be friends, then we don't need to be around each other, because I can't control that.
Why I'm laughing when you said that, because I spent many years, most of my life, working on being different than my mother. And I walked away from a relationship once because this person said, you're just like your mother. And I spent years being different. And that's one thing. If you want to stop me from having anything to do with you, and you knew my mother, that's all they had to say is, you're like your mother, and I was done.
And that was a deal breaker. That was not going to happen.
Yeah. So I was laughing when you brought up that part.
And it's so funny now, Josie, because it used to anger me when people would say, oh, you look like your mother. When they would see me with my grandmother when I was younger, and they would say, oh, this must be Lavana's daughter. That's my mom's name. She looks just like her. And I would just fume on the inside. I mean, I would just get so angry. And now it does not bother me at all. It does not bother me at all for someone to say, you look like your mom, or you, have mannerisms like your mother does, or
Mhm.
and that's how I know I have forgiven her, because that does not bother me
Yeah.
for somebody to say.
But and also, you know what? As far as changing people, you can't change anyone who doesn't want to change. So you're wasting a lot of your energy and time trying to change someone, and they're really, maybe on the exterior you're going to see some changes, but in the back of their mind they're building up this resentment, and eventually they will get angry, show their anger, or walk away from you.
I have a good point here. It says letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means releasing your grip on the parts of the relationship you don't own. You know that saying that says, if you love something, let it go. And if
Mm-hmm.
it comes back, it's really true love. And if it
Yep.
doesn't, it wasn't meant to be.
Yep.
Well, it's kind of like that. If you really truly love somebody, you're not going to try to force them to be something that you want, and not what they want.
Mhm. Well, I've always believed in, and it helps me in dealing with even losses, even death, is I've always said to really love is to let go. And throughout my life, it has helped me, because sometimes you just have to let go.
It says you are responsible for your part, how you show up, how you communicate, how you respond, but not how they receive it. You're not responsible for how they receive what you are saying. Let them receive it for who they are, not how you
Yep.
think they should receive it.
Yeah.
You know?
Hi, Scooter. And hi, Ron. Angie can't read the chat today. She's got no internet. She's on the phone. So that's why I've got her on by herself right now, because otherwise she's really, really small. Randy says, I went to the same junior high that my father did, had the same English teacher. She knew who my father was the second she saw me.
Yeah, that's the way our community is. Everybody knows everybody,
Mhm.
And I always told James I would like to live somewhere where I could actually go places without somebody recognizing who I am, and actually go to church where people don't even know me. You understand what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
was related to everybody that I went to church with, either on my mother's side or my father's side. I mean, everywhere I went, somebody knew who I was.
And then I've got something here about trying to change someone can leave you drained,
Oh,
frustrated, and feeling like you're walking in circles. But here is the beautiful part. When you stop trying to change others, you feel you free yourself. You free your time, your peace of mind, your emotional energy. You begin to set healthy boundaries, and you shift your focus back where it really belongs.
Josie, I think that boundaries are so important when it comes to any relationship, marriage, children and parent, friends, acquaintances, co-workers. I think you have to put boundaries up, because I still believe in, we all have that 3 foot of space,
Yep.
and then unless I invite you into that space, I expect you to stay out of that space, you know. So I feel like you do have to set boundaries in
Yep.
any relationship, or it's not going to work.
Yep, a working relationship, like you said, any relationships. We're not just talking about husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend. We're talking about any relationship. And and another thing I have, you can love people without losing yourself trying to change them. Because once you get so involved with them, and even in their problems, you kind of lose your own identity. You just, and have you ever, okay, start off this way. Say you got up in the morning, you're having a good day, you're happy, and you call this friend, and yes, you want to be there for that friend, but and this friend has always had problems, not this one time, always. It's always something. Emotionally, it drains you. You almost feel like those problems are yours. Have you ever had that feeling like they're not really your problems, but you feel like they are?
You take it on as yours when that person continually has something going on that they're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you take the weight of their situation. Not that you don't want to be there for them, but sometimes a person will not ask you how you're feeling, not ask you what you're dealing with. They're just constantly dumping on you,
Mm-hmm.
like a dump truck that backs up to your back door and just dumps all this on you. And it would be fine if it was a balance of that person saying, well, how are you today? What have you been through? Are you okay? But, you have some people that will not do that.
No.
They will not.
And I don't know, maybe because of my age, I look at younger people and I think, how did they ever get as far as they did, thinking that they were never going to endure problems, grief, hardships, physical, mental, money problems? We weren't promised a rose garden.
If you live long enough, you are going to experience everything. Because I can remember my grandmother telling me, Angie, you're too young. You'll see it when you get older. And I would think, why do I have to wait till I'm older to see it? I can see it right now. And she's like, it comes with experience, and life is going to be your teacher. Mm-hmm. And now that I'm 58 years old and I've experienced everything that I have, and still hadn't experienced everything.
Yeah.
I think of those words that she said to me, Angie, and that's why wisdom comes with age. A lot of young people don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that they are going to have to learn it through time. But honestly, you learn over time wisdom to know what you've been through, that you won't do it again.
Yeah. I was just thinking that the other day, came to my mind, and I thought, now I know what it feels like to be old. And not so much physical. I'm talking about even emotionally, because when you hit a certain age, you can be sharp as a tack. And I'm not as sharp maybe as I used to be, but I'm still sharp.
Oh, you're pretty sharp, Josie.
But other people will look at you and treat you almost like you're a child.
Like you're fragile?
Oh, yeah. And that, I won't use the word I'd want to use because I'm monetized, but
yeah,
that ticks me off. And I can see through it. And I hate it. I hate it. And then I thought, you know what? I guess when I was younger, I probably was like a lot of the young people. I didn't maybe show enough respect to older people as I should have. So you learn as you get older. It's just like I've listened to, my granddaughter, my skin's still in pretty good condition for my age, but kind of criticizing older people. And I looked at her one day and I said, you might be beautiful now, but remember, your skin's not always going to be like that.
Right. You will age.
You will age. So,
well, we hope you, that's the best thing you can hope for, is that you will,
Yes. Yep. Because
think about where I sit, I'm in a wheelchair. I'm out in public. or if I'm in the doctor's office and they kind of treat me like you were talking about, Josie, like I'm fragile, something's wrong with me. I may not think well. I may not handle myself. You know, they have that perception because I'm in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And it just, I'm like, no, you don't understand. I'm good up here. You know, I'm very good up here. I'm very intelligent and I can carry on a conversation.
Oh, you
But
are.
people want
Yeah.
to pat me on the back. How are you, sweetheart? Are you okay? How are you doing today? And I guess they don't mean anything about it, but it's just the picture of what they see when I'm in my wheelchair.
Yeah. Yes. Hi, Sandy and Lena. And thank you, Ron. Says Josie sharp as a razor.
Yeah, she is.
I'm very blessed. I'm very blessed. That, and why we do these shows is not to criticize, not to throw negativity out there. We're learning right along with you. And even at my age, I try to learn one thing every day, believe it or not. Whether it's emotionally, whether it's on my computer, my creativity, I try to learn something. You're never too old to learn. And one of the things that I don't know helps me, maybe it wouldn't help you, but it helps me. When I do make a mistake, I admit it because it makes me want to do better next time.
But
And
you know, it's okay to admit that you didn't know something or you did something wrong or you may have said something that wasn't appropriate, or you have to go back. That's what keeps us humble. That's what keeps us on track. You know what I'm saying? Because if we always thought we were right and we never apologized and we got so much pride in us, we couldn't learn anymore. And I'm like you. I love to learn something every day that I didn't know the day before. It makes it more interesting, the day more interesting.
And medically speaking, I don't try to bring my nursing into it, but medically speaking, if you don't use those brain cells and you just sit and do nothing, you're not going to be very sharp. Your brain cells die off. You need to stimulate them.
And I totally agree, because it's the same way as your body. You know, if you just sit around and you don't move and you don't get up and you don't, like exercise or move the muscles or the bones and all that, you are going to lose them. You are going to get so weak. And I imagine it's like that with your brain. You know, if you don't use it, you lose it. And I guess that's why I try to keep it, functional.
And Papa Smurf Ron said, my grandpa was 98. His method of transportation gave out on him, but his brain was sharp as it could be. Yes. Sometimes, the bodies, I mean, let's face it, our bodies and just depends. Genetics have a lot to do with it, some things we kind of inherit from our genes,
Right, that we can't control. We always, my sister and I said, why couldn't our family leave us millions of dollars? But instead they left us arthritis, being a diabetic, heart trouble, named all these medical things that our family had handed down to us, but they couldn't leave us millions of dollars. We laughed about it.
Yeah.
But you do get things from your parents, their parents, they hand it down.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to ask the audience, how do you feel about change, and how do you feel about changing other people or in any type of relationship? Have you endured any of this?
That's a good question for the comments.
Yeah.
For the chat.
Do you feel put down I think it's okay. Somebody say you're going to go out to lunch with somebody, and you get to the restaurant, and maybe say a school friend. You meet up with a high school friend that you hadn't seen in 30 years, and that person looks at you and say, "Oh, wow, you sure look different. You sure have aged."
Yeah.
I mean, how's that going to make you feel? Are you going to enjoy your conversation the rest of the lunch hour? Or are you going to be kind of defensive and hurt? You know, like,
Out of everything you could have said, you chose that to say. I mean, you know what? That would be
yeah,
my thought.
yeah. And so, how do you guys feel? And personally, my own personality, because let's face it, I'm blunt. I call it like it is. Although I'm not going to be blunt and say, I've never went to someone and said, "Hey, I don't like your hairdo," or "I don't like what you wear." No, my bluntness is, I feel, my honesty, that I won't insult someone just because
Right.
I'm blunt.
Right.
I would never do that. That's horrible.
You know why? Because that's a preference. That's a choice. They chose to wear their hair like that. They chose to wear their makeup like that. I mean, they chose the fingernail polish they have. That's a choice. That's not something that just because you don't choose it, that doesn't give you the right to dictate what they do.
Exactly. Let's see. Sandy says, I fight change. Hubby of 45 years is the total opposite. I, yeah, I know enough about Sandy and her husband. They're a great couple. But
If you
yeah,
ever want to learn anything, have a marriage that's lasted for a while, and then
mhm,
you're going to know how to deal with other relationships, because you are going to go through so many different phases in that marriage that you just
yeah,
want to throw your hands up sometimes, and then other times you think, oh, I can't live without them. You know,
and,
it's like a roller coaster.
yeah. And Randy says, when I was 50 years younger, it upset me. I felt like I was not being accepted for who I was. Now I don't give a flying flip.
That's the way I am. I could care less.
Yeah. Yeah. See, Randy, that comes with age. And no one believes me. That I've had people laugh in my face. I used to be a very, very quiet, timid person, very shy. And I've had people look at me like, oh, she's full of it. Really and truly, I was. Um, Life changes. And as you get older, you get more vocal. That and you'll hear about it on my second channel, because I'm doing a series on all the jobs I had. Besides being a nurse, I was purchasing supervisor for 2 years in the hospital. And so in that job position, I had to learn to be aggressive and vocal, or I wouldn't have held that job. So that's the
I'm
big
so
thing.
glad that you are doing that series, because I feel like even with the first one that you did, because I watched it and you started out with your very first job, I feel like people are going to get so much out of it, you know, for you to tell your story. And I think that's what most people want, is for YouTubers to tell their own story and not make up things. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. There's so much fake on YouTube now. It's almost scary. You don't know who to watch. Um, it's like the channels that do, like, oh, let's see, entertainers that passed away today. Like, they'll have 5 of them, and you go on and Google it, and those entertainers are still alive.
Right. Right.
So
Exactly.
it's horrible what they do for money. Hi, Miss Hernandez. Welcome, welcome. See, Randy says, I know everyone doesn't like me. So what? I don't like everyone I meet either, but I never treat people different. No, you're 100% right, Randy. Everyone isn't going to like us. We're not going to
I don't
like
think we're
everyone.
supposed to.
No,
I don't think we're supposed to all like each other.
no. Think about this. if we all had the same personality, we wore the same thing, we did everything the same, what a boring world we would
Oh, it
live
would be
in.
boring. And then how would we progress?
We
I
wouldn't,
mean,
we
how
would,
would we go further?
yeah, we wouldn't learn anything. I'm going to go back in the chat and see. My son always, oh, this is Lena. My son always says, what's wrong with you? You were taught tough and sharp, and they get on my looks too now. Well, they shouldn't criticize your looks, and they shouldn't tell you you're tough and sharp. You're probably tough because of your occupation, and you haven't had an easy life, Lena. You dealt beautifully with your daughter, and I've watched you closely, and I know that a lot of people wouldn't have the patience that you have with
That's what
her.
I was about to say. I look at Lena like, Taylor was born with the fluid on her brain. She had hydrocephalus. And I think, she could have a disability that I would be like Lena, taking care of her. And I just admire Lena so much when I
Yep.
see her with her daughter, knowing that she sacrificed part of her life to help her daughter. It
Yep.
just is amazing to me
She's
that she has done that. And I totally respect that and think it's a wonderful thing.
Hi, Deborah. Welcome. It's Timeless Jewelry by Deborah here. Welcome, welcome. Yes, I admire Lena. I have had a lot of patience, but I can't say I would be as good as Lena is with her daughter.
I know. And I think God gives people that situation because they know they can handle it, because not everybody can.
Yep. God made, Sandy says, God made us in his image. How can we not be beautiful? But he did not have a sense of humor with some of us. I think God does have a sense of humor
now.
I think God does. And Sandy, you're a beautiful lady inside and out. And I've always said, and I learned it in my younger years. You meet somebody, and I'm even talking about a man. You meet somebody and they think, okay, he's not really that handsome, but he seems nice. And you get to know that person, and all of a sudden you see that person begins to look handsome or beautiful.
Have you ever been so connected to someone that you could see them, like when you looked in their eyes, or when you were around them, you could see?
Uh-oh. This happened earlier and she froze, and I think she's going to just, now you're back. I thought you were leaving us for a minute there. You froze.
All right, yeah. I think I'm back now.
Yeah, you're back. That the thing is to accept people the way they are. You may not like what they do. And I'm not saying you should bend and do what they do just because you want to be friends. If you can't tolerate what they do, then get away. But don't try to change them. You can use yourself as an example.
Yeah, be the example and live it, and don't try to make them be different. Make them want to be different.
Exactly. It's like when I married the man who died of cancer. He thought all people who went to church were hypocrites. He had been to several different churches, and he had an ex-wife that was went to the Mormon church. And so anyway, he knew my beliefs. And I made up my mind from day one, I wasn't going to preach to him. I tried to live it. By the time this man was diagnosed with cancer, he was the deacon in the church. He read the Bible every single night. He'd start from page 1. He completely read the Bible at least 3 times. And I never once preached to this man. I tried to live it and show him in my own way
why you believe what you believe. And then he just saw it and he wanted that. You know, you kind of provoked him to want it, you know?
Yeah. And I say, if I had, hounded him all the time, well, you need to believe this, you need to believe that, he would have went the other way. And he was a very kind-hearted, loving man. But he lived it.
I think you're probably right, because people rebel. Most people rebel when you try to change them.
Yep.
You know, they
Hi,
do.
Ella. Welcome, Ella. Yeah, you can, I think by living it and people seeing you works better than trying to change somebody by lecturing them. You can throw in a little advice once in a while. It doesn't hurt.
And you can learn from that person too. I mean, just because you think that you want that person to be different in ways, well, that person probably wants you to be different in ways too. You need to, look at yourself and think, well, how do I need to grow? What do I need to do to make this relationship work? If you want it to work, you need to not just say that person needs to change. You need to look at yourself and say, what can I do?
And even at my age, it took me the last couple of years to actually truly learn forgiveness. The last 2 years, and it was a struggle. It wasn't easy, I can tell you.
And then, Josie, I don't know if you feel this way, but after you learn something, whether it be forgiveness or whatever lesson you're supposed to learn, I always go, why did I fight that so hard? Why did I fight that? Why did I not just, because it brings so much peace and comfort and so much of that into your life. And we as humans just want to fight stuff. We want to resist it for some reason.
We're human. That's the biggest problem, is for human.
Yeah, our will. We want our will.
Yeah, and we think the same way with, okay, and I'm not trying to bring my beliefs into this, but the way I believe, we think sometimes that we know better than God, and we can tell him what to do. And people sometimes say, well, God didn't answer my prayer. Were you really asking, or were you telling him? Were you dictating to him what you want, or were you really praying what you needed? And again, see, we even try to do that with God. And we do it to our friends, our family.
You are so right. And, God sees the big picture. He already knows what's going to happen down the road. So he's protecting you and saving you. Sort of like with our children. They kind of demand us when they're growing up that they want something, or we need to do what they want. But we see the harm in it.
Yeah.
And we know they shouldn't have it. And that's what he does to us. He knows we shouldn't have it.
Yep. And anyway, hopefully we can all work on this. I still have to work on this stuff every day. I'm getting better about, I'm not as judgmental as I was. And that was another thing I had to work on.
I think we all have that in us, to be judgmental and to look at people when they do something out of the ordinary and go, how in the world did they even think of doing that? That is insane. But what we don't know is how they were brought up, what morals and standards they were given from the time they were born to their becoming an adult. We don't know their circumstance, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, everybody has, and that's why I would like to see, not that you have to tell your nitty gritty, and there's some things you need to keep off of social media because not everyone's nice on social media. But I think when you get to know people better, you're less judgmental. Um, Everyone has a past. Everyone has went through hardships. Everyone hurts. Um, and we just need to be more kind and loving to each other. You
And
know?
see, that's why I'm so glad that you're telling your stories of your work on your other channel. Is because that allows people to see you in a different light of how you have come from what the stories you're telling to where you are now, you
Yeah,
know. And I think it would be good. I would love to hear other people's stories
I
because
would too.
I have heard people give stories on this YouTube, and my eyes would just be like, what? I had no idea, you
Mhm.
know, that person had went through that, or that person had experienced a certain thing, or they had tried a certain thing.
Yeah,
And I think it's just wonderful for people to be that authentic, to be able to share it, you know, and own it.
yeah. Well, we're so, the thing is, especially the younger generation, and I'm not being critical here, but I'm talking about YouTube. You see this young gal comes on and her, everything is perfect. Her house looks like there's nothing out of place. Her hair is perfect, not like mine today. uh, her everything is, that's not how you live every day. That's not the real you.
Not
I just
especially if she has children, because now when my children were growing up, my grandmother would say, Angie, you are killing yourself trying to clean up behind them. Just
Mhm.
wait. It'll be a day that it's not even going to be, they're not even going to be playing with toys, and, you know, just enjoy them. Don't try to go behind them and pick up stuff while they're playing with it. Or, you know, she was just telling me to slow down and quit trying to be perfect.
Did I used to have the pillows on my sofa perfect. I got to the point I actually bought this was for my first two kids, a love seat for them so they could have their own little space. Because I wanted my sofa, the pillows and everything had to be perfect. And thank God I got over that. That's
Look, James
insane.
James told me one day, we had company here, and when they left, he said, "Look here, I need you to work on something if you don't mind." And I'm like, "Really?" The temperature's rising, you know, because I'm like, "What is he about to say?" He said, "Have you ever noticed that you pick up people's glass that they're drinking out of before they're even finished drinking?"
I could see you do that.
And I said, "What?" He said, "Did you notice tonight that the people were not even finished with their drink and you're picking it up to wash their glass?" And I had not even noticed that I was doing that.
Oh
He
my.
brought it to my attention. And the next time I was like, you know, he's right. I did do that. I did.
Yeah, but that's, thank God, it takes some time, years, but sometime eventually we learn that there's a lot better things going on in life than the perfection that we think we have to have with everything in place. Because yeah, it's like with children, they're not little for very long.
You know, that was so stressful for me. And I would think, how are these other ladies doing this? Because they make it look so easy. And here I am picking up after my children and getting baths and cooking supper. And then when you see them, they got all their hairs in place, they got makeup on, they got they're dressed perfect. I'm like, how are they doing this?
It's not real. So,
No.
you can still look very nice, and that our lives, none of them are perfect. We don't have, I mean, if you could see the rest of my room.
Oh, if you could see my table right now that I'm sitting in front of, you would say, Angie, sweetheart, baby, darling. No, that's not going to work, honey. No,
I was working on a journal today, so my table is full of paper and yeah. Anyway, let's see. Sandy says, my doc told me years ago, keep it up and someone else will raise your kids. Yep.
Oh, yeah, that's perfect. Yeah,
That is, yeah.
that it was very good comment to think on. Very good.
And then let's see. Ella says, hey, Angie, stay out my room. Randy
Oh,
says, I was a single mom. I learned early my son would not appreciate and always cleaned house and crummy mama. So housework took second place.
you know, children grow up so fast. And my grandmother always told me that. She said, Angie, stop and just be with them because they're not here for very long. They are gone more than they are with you when they become an adult. You need to enjoy them while they're young.
Yep.
So that kind of slowed me down, you know, to pay attention to what was going on.
I already missed my I have 3 grandkids, one 17, 16, and 15. And I miss the days we used to color and do puzzles. And my granddaughter, I used to let her put makeup all over me. She had my face black one day. But, you know, I miss those. They grow up so fast.
They do.
So who cares about, you know?
Who cares if there's dishes in the sink or, you know, you have clothes to fold up or whatever. You'll get to it. Don't worry about it.
Yep. Yep. It's only material stuff. It's not, you know, you're going to leave all that stuff here anyway. So, did we miss? And I do have a closing statement. Let's see. And why that's it. I don't know if I talked about this. Why you can't change other people and why that's a gift. The truth, you can't change anyone who doesn't want to change. You can inspire them, support them, and set a good example. But you can't do the work for them. Change is something that comes from the inside, from a place of personal desire and self-awareness. And as hard as it is to accept sometimes, no amount of love, talk, or effort on your part will flip the switch for them.
That is so true. And when you really realize that that's the truth, then you're going to let go and say, I'm either going to be with them and accept them the way they are, or I'm going to walk away. I mean, you're going to make a decision.
Yeah. So I didn't know, Nikki, you have a 24-year-old, a 16.
Hey, Nikki.
I did not know that.
I didn't know he was 24.
I didn't know she had one that was 24. I was thinking you're young, Nikki.
Yeah, Nikki, I was thinking that same thing.
I didn't think she was old enough to have a 24-year-old. You got
See,
good
that's
genes.
what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. We do not know things about people that we see every day online. We do not know what they live behind closed doors when they're not online. We don't know their life. But you know what? I'm glad that I know that now. You know, I'm glad that I know that about Nikki, that she has 2 sons. And, you know, that's good information to know. To me, I enjoy finding out about people.
Mm-hmm. I know one thing about Nikki. Dang, she's got 2 nice of sterling silver rings.
Yeah, you can't stay away from them, Josie.
I know. I'm addicted. Nikki, you gotta start getting some.
Look, I see you in there at her auctions and you start bidding. I'm like, another ring for Josie.
You gotta start having some ugly ones, girl. Anyway, the quality, she has great quality. Well, do you think should I do my closing statement or?
Yes. I think closing, we've been on an hour, so I think that's
Oh,
pretty
really?
good.
Oh, okay. And I've got it all typed out so I wouldn't forget. Thank you all for being here and sharing your thoughts tonight. This was such a powerful reminder that real love and real connections don't come from trying to fix people. They come from accepting people just as they are. We all have room to grow, but the growth should come within, not because someone is pressuring us to be different. So as we go forward, let's try to lead with grace, patience, and understanding. Let's love people for who they are, not for who we hope they become. Because sometimes the most beautiful change happens when someone feels truly accepted. Thank you again for being here. Take care of yourself and others. Until next time, stay kind, stay real, stay connected.
That's beautiful. That's perfect.
Thank you. Thank you. And we do love you guys. And sorry that we're very blessed that at least she could get on with her phone, but that's why she's smaller.
I
Anyway,
think it worked out pretty good because at
yeah.
first I thought I wasn't even going to be able to be there.
And you know what? We'd
But,
appreciate comments in the comment section. If you have any suggestions, or if you like this, or you're enjoying our talks, next month it will be on Angie's.
And I'm not sure what it's going to be about, but I want to say one last thing, Josie, and I don't know why I feel impressed to say this, but I used to be a smoker. I used to smoke, and there was a lot of people that never knew that I smoked because I wouldn't smoke around them. And then they would talk about people that smoked, and I never would speak up and say, well, I smoke. You're talking about me. You know, I don't know why I thought I had to hide it from them, but I just felt like I didn't want to smoke in front of certain people, that it might offend them or it might make me look less than who. And mostly it was people that I went to church with. I didn't want them to know that I was a smoker. But then I felt like I was lying, that I was deceiving people, that I wasn't being truthful to who I was. So finally, if I wouldn't smoke in front of them, but if they would ever say anything about smoking, I would say, well, you know, I smoke every now and then. I'm a smoker. And and it felt freeing for me to say that. Now, I quit smoking about 10 years ago. So I'm not a smoker now, but it made me feel more authentic when I owned it and said, wait a minute, there's nothing wrong with smokers. I'm a smoker. I smoke. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, when you have something that you feel like you need to hide from people that you are around, then you don't feel secure enough to be who you really are and let them love you through it. You know what I'm saying?
And Sandy, a little dust on the bottle. I apologize. I don't think I said hello to you. I missed you in the chat. Thank you for being here. And we hope you will join us next month on Angie's. And I know she'll pick a great topic.
Well, we hope y'all are enjoying it. If y'all have any topic that y'all want us to cover, you know, to talk about, to research, to, you know, whatever, just put it in an email and we'll work on it.
Okay. Love you guys. God bless.
Bye.
Bye.